I'd like to talk about acceptance in grief. Okay, but before we jump into that conversation, I would like to welcome you. So thank you for coming to the Heart and Soul Cafe. This is Ghazala. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, you're more than welcome. Please pull up a chair and let's have a chat. So acceptance. Now, what's the definition of acceptance? Acceptance is the process in which we come to terms, and in this sense, so in grieving, so the process in which we come to terms with what has happened, okay, the situation now. Okay? But if we talk about the 5 stages of grief, the Kubler-Ross model, Dr. Elizabeth's, the 5 stages of grief, and the last stage of that is acceptance. Okay, and you may say, well, this video isn't actually addressing that acceptance. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I mean is, those 5 stages, when it comes to acceptance, if I talk about myself, yes, I've come to the realization and I've accepted the fact, the reality of the fact that I've lost my son. Okay, but the thing is, it's not that you get to those 5, you go through those 5 stages and you come to that 5th stage and then you have that realization and then you step off grief. Once you've got to stage 5, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. We know that, don't we? Because it's not linear. You can go backwards and forwards, and I might one day, have that realization that yes, I have very sadly lost my son, and this is how life looks now. And then the next day, I'm back there again. I've taken 5 steps back, and I'm back to one of the other stages of grief. Okay, so that's one thing. I just wanted to clarify. That is, the 5th stage of grief, not the 5th necessarily, but it's one of the stages of grief. And that I actually added for my own self stage 6 and stage 7. And stage 6 for me was rediscovering who I was. Okay, and then stage 7 was finding my new direction, finding my meaning and purpose in life. Okay, so that's how that looked for me. But when I talk about acceptance here, I'm actually talking about acceptance of myself. One of the things that I find that people struggle with is accepting themselves. Okay, so in mental health first aid, I do have a section where we talk about a certain amount of keys to happier living. Okay, keys to happier living, and one of those keys is acceptance. And I do ask that question: what do you think is the most challenging of these keys to happier living? And it comes up again and again and again. Acceptance comes up again and again, because we are our own worst critics, aren't we? And you know what I'm talking about, don't you? We and doing this is really putting that to the test, because here I am in front of the camera. You might think, oh, I sound silly, and I sound like this, and I don't like the sound of my voice, and I don't like the way I look, or the way I'm acting, or the way I'm behaving, or the way I explain things, or the way my mouth moves to one side slightly, and all those sort of things that we pick up about ourselves that other people probably don't even notice. We are so critical of ourselves, and most of the time we say things to ourselves that we would never ever dream of saying to a friend or a loved one. We wouldn't say it to them. So I do say that quite a lot of the time to people, that if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, why are you saying it to yourself? Why are you being so horrid to yourself and so critical of yourself? So yeah, we do tend to do that, and acceptance is one of those things. So for me, when I was talking about acceptance in grief, what I'm really talking about is, where are you in that? Are you accepting of yourself now? That is really where I am. That's the question I'm asking, because we are so critical anyway, and we struggle so much when it comes to acceptance, that after loss, I found that I needed to rediscover who I was, because I was no longer that person, that Ghazala that I knew before my loss was left at the park, where my son sadly had his cardiac arrest, and that part of Ghazala was left there. That Ghazala, actually not that part of Ghazala, but that Ghazala was left there, and you know, the person who came back from the park wasn't that same person, and so I had to rediscover. So rediscovering is one thing, and then accepting who that person is another, isn't it? It's learning to like yourself again, and learning to finding your meaning and purpose, and actually having passion for that, because it's all changed. It's all changed after loss. It's not the same. It's no longer the same thing. You know, all your goals and ambitions, and you know, looking into the future and what the future looked like, so much of that has gone, and left with a void because of that one person who's no longer in your life. So you then are on a rediscovery journey, and I suppose I'm still on that journey. You know, it's not that you get to a point where, oh, okay, now I found myself and this is this one day, because, you know, things are ever changing. You know, this, for example, this, you know, YouTube channel is something that's quite new. It's very new actually, not even 2 weeks old. But so finding yourself in the world is something that I've had to do, and I think I probably still am doing, because life is so different to what it was. And then accepting of yourself is something that you almost have to redo, because you've had to go on this rediscovery thing. You know, it's like doing it all again, really. So how accepting are you of yourself, and has that changed since your loss? And you know, how, and what's your experience of that? You know, is what I've sort of shared with you, my experiences, can you resonate with that, or is your journey something completely different? Does it paint a completely different picture? You know, I'm really interested to know. So please do share. Please share, like, and please subscribe, because we do need to build numbers. And if we don't have numbers, we're not going to, I don't know how we're going to move forward with this, but you know, we'll see how that goes. Thank you so much for coming along and having a look at this video. I do so appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, please take care, your heart and souls. Thank you.